Before we begin, thank you very much to Austin Yu for joining my Patreon campaign. Very appreciated. Thank you so much for the help. It means the world to me. You guys are legitimately the reason I can keep doing this every day, and you're legitimately the reason the channel still exists. So thank you guys so much for the support. If you want to help the channel keep going, if you want the grind to continue, please consider supporting the Patreon campaign with the links in my description below. So, quick plug out of the way. I kind of want this to be a quicker-ish video. The Toy Store Life videos don't need to go too far or too long. But this is kind of a seasonal topic. And I mean that very literally. So, right now, the toy shop is facing a bit of a conundrum. And it's something that a lot of businesses in Florida go through. Now, if you're in the Midwest, if you're in like California and the areas where the weather is always super pleasant, or some northern areas, you're probably, this is not something you're particularly familiar with because it's not really a thing unless you are a tourist state like Florida is, and that is season. So Florida is a seasonal state. What that means is there's a lot more people here in the cold months than there are in the warm months. The truth is, a lot of people who live in Florida live here part-time. They have places up north that are in a nicer environment. Florida is nice for people to come to. They love the beaches. They love the shopping. They love the tourism. They love going to Disney on a 3-hour drive. They do not love the heat. They do not love the heat that begins in the spring and lasts through a good chunk of the fall. No. So they'll have a summer home. They'll have like a winter home here and then a summer home somewhere up north, and always basically living in some like natural, normal climate for them. So it's a good way of avoiding, harsh winters and super blazing summers. It is a ridiculous amount of money you need to afford that lifestyle, but the truth is that's what a lot of Florida is. It's a lot of people who are in that super ritzy lifestyle. But it means that shops like this perform far better in the colder months than they do in the warm months. There's just a lot more people here, and because they are all tourist traffic, they are far more willing to spend the money. We have, we see ups and downs from that. We just got done with spring break. So we had a lot more business during spring break just because there's a lot more people down here because we're close to a beach, essentially. So season kind of works the same way. And traditionally it ends at Easter. Like after Easter Sunday, that's pretty much when the migration back north begins. And we are officially considered out of season. Now, it's usually just like the point where it's officially done. There's people who have left, a month ahead. It all depends on preference, timing, etc. Lots of factors. Point being, we've hit the point in the year now where there's a lot less people here, which means there's a lot less money kicking around, meaning a shop like this all of a sudden has to kind of look at what we're doing and go, well, what now? What now do we do with this place now that like half the people are here? Because the truth is, like, a lot of our foot traffic is people who are from out of town. They're visiting grandma on vacation. They are here for schooling. They're here on a temporary job, or they're just most of the time it is just them visiting family or visiting the beach, and they're just popping in to see what kind of collector shops are in the area. The rare time I vacation out of state, I basically do the same thing. I want to hit every collector store I can find because every single one is different. Every collector store I've ever been into has been a completely different beast from all the others that I have gone into. And it's a fascinating thing. It's fascinating to be able to see, especially if you're going far out, what a collector shop on the West Coast looks like compared to what one looks like on the East Coast. I mean, it's, kind of a great experience. So a lot of our traffic during season is people like that. They're here for a few weeks. They'll pop in a few times before they fly home, and they're just curious about what there is. And because they are here to vacation and spend money, they spend great money. Well, that's kind of, gone. Once summer hits, that's a little bit rough from now on. So you need to get creative. You need to figure out what are you going to do to keep the place interesting when there's far fewer people. How are you going to keep the business afloat when everyone is gone? Well, you pull the tricks you can. So here at Bonita Springs Toys and Games, do I have one handy? Of course I don't. Of course, why would I prepare for this? We just started a reward program. And this is a pretty basic thing for little businesses to do. We're not the only one in the area that does it. You spend so much, we'll put a stamp on a card. You fill out a stamp, it's worth a discount. Great way of not only getting people to spend a little bit more on when they visit to get that extra stamp on their trip, but also to get them to come back and spend a little bit more to fill out that card and eventually get their little discount. I mean, it's a little bit of money out of our pocket, but it brings in a lot of return customers and it gives a little bit more incentive to buy a little bit more. So that's a nice way of doing it. And, ultimately, it is still the customer coming out on the top, the high, the good side of that, because they're going to get money off at some point, which is money out of our pocket. We're just hoping that it's enough fuel for them to choose us instead of a competitor or, a big mass retail store, instead. So that's one way to do it. That's one way to keep people keep people interested. Sales are another reason, especially right now. Like a collector store like this struggles in an economy like we're going through at the moment, where everything is crazy expensive and people are just struggling to pay for rent. So we look at the stuff that we have an abundance of and go, well, let's see if we can't move some of this old stock, freshen things up, make some space, and at the same time let people shop a little bit easier or get a little bit more for their money. So we've done something in the past, which was buy two, get one Funko Pop. And right now, so I brag online. One of the things that I tout on our social medias is that we have the largest Funko selection in all of Southwest Florida. And if I turn this camera around, you'd see it. But essentially, the last time I counted something about 1,400 Funko Pops we currently have in stock. It's a lot. It's a lot more than anybody else in this area that stocks them. So we've got the largest selection in Southwest Florida. So yeah, we've done buy two, get one pop before. We're probably going to do buy two, get one pop again. It does bring people in, and it does keep the stock shuffling through. Because when you start offering discounts like that, the trick to those kind of discounts, anytime you see a store that's doing like clearance sales, of course, clearance sales always mean we're selling off the stuff that has not sold in months, right? Normal retail shops work the exact same way. In the case of little shops like this, what typically sells when you're doing something like that is the stuff that they pass by over and over, the stuff that they just kind of want, but they never really pull the trigger on. And it's typically common stuff, stuff that they assume is going to be here anytime, and they can just pick it up whenever they want. But this is the kind of opportunity to actually take those things away. So it's another big important piece. So that's another way to do it. That'll keep people interested. A big way. So obviously, when it's a shop like this, the biggest way of keeping people interested is to bring in new things that we don't currently offer. But there's the counterpoint to that, because if we're not pulling in enough money, we're not pulling in as much money as we were before, then our options for buying collections and increasing our variety does become somewhat limited. So now how do you combat that? For a shop like this, it's a lot of reshuffling. So I talked previously about the Tetris game. I'm pretty sure I've talked about a lot of this before, but I never dedicated something to just what does a shop like this do when season ends. So that's what we're doing today. We talked about the Tetris game before. If you look at the wall behind me, if you look at this wall on this far side, this is like, the biggest flat surface of toy that we have. Those very astute might notice a few changes from the last time you saw the wall behind me, because I've actually done a lot to reshuffle it and freshen up the look. Everything in the Star Wars section got compressed down, married shelves together, married pegs together, everything got pushed to the left. Everything on this side got pushed down to the left until I had enough space to reorganize over here in the comic book toys. The Spawn, the DC, and the Marvel are now all on one side, which frees up space here, which allows me to start going a little bit crazier. So, for instance, if I need more Funko, if I need more selection, if I need more space in my Funko section for more selection, I have to start there. I have to start at the far end of the Star Wars section and work my way all the way around the shop just to get the space to the point that I need it at, which is essentially what I have done now. It took me like 3 days just to figure out where everything was going to go. And even now, I'm still kind of cooking up these crazy plans. Over my right shoulder, you see our Pokemon card selection. Well, there's been certain things we've noticed about the Pokemon cards. Namely, the stuff that gets pushed to the left corner there never sells because it's hard to see from the register, especially if you're a kid that can barely see over the register. So a lot of people kind of gloss over that and don't really notice. So now I have to figure out the solution to that. And the solution to that is a mass rearranging so everything can be seen easier. I have a grid wall here to my right that currently is like, it's some sealed vintage Ninja Turtles. We've got those. We've got old WWF Hasbro figures on card. For you Transformer fans, I have this. I have the Super Link 2-pack, the anniversary of both Transformers and Microman. We have some vintage Super Sentai on the shelf above me. Some other WWE toys. I've got a set of Camp Lazlo plushies that no one's ever bought, even though they're super rare. So, where does that all go? If I want to put the cards all here and kind of even out all the visibility that all those cards and sets have, where does all this go? So now I have to figure that out too. Keeping the look of the store fresh is extremely important. You don't want people to get bored. You don't want people to come in and go, oh, well, it's everything I saw last time I was here. Leave. So rearranging is an incredibly valuable thing you can do without actually spending any money. But the process of figuring out where it all goes is not only time consuming, it is mentally exhausting. When you have to figure out where literally $100,000 worth of merchandise all has to get reshuffled to, so not only does it look like it makes sense, but it also has a very different look to it, So that's the Tetris game again. But it is a really important part of the seasonal change. Shops like this will change somewhere around the spring. It's like a spring cleanup type thing. And it's all about putting things where they weren't before, because it makes people who come in here stare at things differently. It makes their eyes go in different directions. The familiarity being removed drastically changes how people view this. They'll notice things they didn't notice before, which means they might buy things they didn't notice before. It might be, coming in and seeing a completely new arrangement to the shop makes it fresh, makes it fun to go around and explore the shop all over again. Even if it's the same stuff they were selling before, it's still enjoyable to just go through and see all the different stuff in its different arrangement. So it makes coming back in here more fun. And it's a taxing way to do it, but it's a free way of doing it, which when you're out of season is a really important thing. And then it's basically just hope for the best, mind your spending, spend a lot less on, spend more on advertisement, spend a lot less on new inventory, and just ride it out. Like every Florida business has to just ride it out. How most retail businesses kind of wait for Black Friday before they really start getting into the black on their profit for the year. That's how businesses in Florida work, except we don't wait for Black Friday. We wait for We wait for fall. We wait for season to hit. And then, Black Friday is just like a icing on the cake at that point for us. No, it's half of the year that we do really, really well, and then the other half where we have to get super creative, and we have to be willing to take a loss so that we don't incur even more losses because we didn't try to do anything differently. So that is the stress of being in a seasonal state, trying to deal with seasonal problems. And when it's a shop like this that can, survive week in, week out sometimes, it's a big problem, and you've got to be willing to do a lot of different things in order to mitigate it. Yeah. So again, I guess this is another, when I do Toy Store Life, I really do kind of want to tell you like the funny stuff that happens at the shop, the weird people that come in, the strange things that I get traded in. But for the most part, yeah, a lot of it is just telling you guys what it is really like to work at a toy shop and manage a collector's toy shop that you don't typically hear, because everyone wants to doll it up as like some great dream job. And don't get me wrong, this is a wonderful place to work. I am happy to come in to do my job every single day I come in. But it's not sunshine and rainbows every single day. We face problems. We have things that come up. We have, solutions that we have to formulate. And yeah, it can be really stressful. And I'm now entering a period of like 6 months of stress until season begins again and we start making good money again. But that's what it takes to run a shop like this in Florida. You got to be willing to do it. You got to be willing to adapt, because that is, that's law of nature. Adapt or get left behind. But that is general retail life in Florida, on the whole. And that, of course, is the Toy Store Life. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.